Dear Christian, dear anyone, I am only about the truth. This is the truth. For example, we all know ice is cold, fire is hot, water is wet. We all know facts. The facts of life are what we know to be true. They are facts. There are millions of facts. The 3 or 4 that I've just cited are real to every individual on earth, present and past. Sugar is sweet, etc., etc., etc. But we also falsely think, presume, and defend a point of view. We all have points of view. Now, if I say to you fire is hot, that is not a point of view. Or water is wet, that is not a point of view. But points of view are individual and not necessarily accepted by anyone else. There are many, many, many millions of points of view. In fact, there are as many points of view as there are people, past and present. There are points of view that can be agreed upon. You might have 100 people listening to the same program on television. But there'll be many points of view from those 100. There may be 100 points of view, totally different from one another. Or there could be only 2 points of view. 50 people agreeing with one point of view, another 50 people agreeing with the second point of view. There could be only 4 points of view. 25 agreeing with point of view A, 25 people agreeing with point of view B, and so on. But points of view are not necessarily the truth. They cannot be the truth because they're variable, because they change. Just basic. Today I had a nice day, and someone else said, well, today I had a horrible day. But in fact, it was the same day if you're living in the same circumstance. It's the same weather. If you're all living in the same house, it's the same temperature. You know, you can have 5 people in a room and say, oh, isn't it hot? And someone will say, no, I feel cold. These are points of view. And it's that which causes groups of people coming together. If 10 people have the same point of view, then that's 10 people sharing the same point of view, and they can continue with that point of view for the rest of their lives and feel that they belong to 9 other people. This is how groups begin. This is how sects begin, religions begin, cultures begin. cults begin. If you feel happy with the point of view of another person, then you become possibly that person's friend. If you don't share that point of view with that person down the road, you don't necessarily become their enemy, but you don't become their friend in the same way. Throughout history, we all know there's been wars. There are wars happening right now, great conflicts. This is all because of point of view. That belongs to me. No, it doesn't. It belongs to me. Well, it belonged to me 100 years ago. It should belong to me today. These points of view come from what we consider to be human. They are not necessarily the truth. They become personal. They become subjective. The truth that fire is hot and water is wet is not subjective. It's an actuality. Throughout the day, we may or may not see the sun, but we know the sun exists. That is a statement that is true. Even though we don't see the sun as the sun shining there, we know the sun exists. Even if it's nighttime, we know that the sun exists. And in the daytime, we don't necessarily see the moon, but we know the moon exists. And there's no way that we can see the sun throughout the day, every single day. Why? Because of clouds. We see the clouds and not the sun. But where is the sun? Even though we can't see it, it's beyond the clouds or the other side of the world. What we tend to do is we give emphasis to the clouds, which come and go because points of view come and go. When you were 5, you had a point of view that changed when you were 10 or 12, maybe. As you get older, you see things differently. Sometimes the better, sometimes the worse. There are very few, this is a fact, mature adults living simply as truth and not as point of view. Yes, we can have a point of view, but we're not necessarily living it. It doesn't mean so much as the truth, because a point of view is not, once again, necessarily the truth. It's like a cloud. It comes and goes. But the true mature person who has realized the truth, who is what I call enlightened, lives the truth, which is identifying with the sun rather than with the clouds. Although the enlightened person has a point of view, like, oh, isn't that a good singer? Didn't she sing that well? He or she who is enlightened lives the reality that they are the sun. because the enlightened person is living as light beyond the darkness, because points of view are like clouds, and if you like, because they come and go, they are the darkness, not the sun, which is stable and constant. What we've got to understand is that all these wars and conflicts and disagreements, whether nation against nation or neighbour against neighbour, or even neighbour embracing neighbour, or nation embracing nation, it all stems from identification with a point of view. That's how all separativeness comes about. You can have 100 people with 100 different points of view about something or other. And because there's 100 points of view, there's 100 separate individuals. If there are only 2 points of view within that 100, then there's 50 agreeing with one point of view, let's call it A, and 50 agreeing with another point of view, let's call it B. So we get a group of 50, 2 groups of 50 people. Now, if each one of those individuals represents a nation, then we get 50 nations against, or in contradiction, the other group. But due to what we call human nature, we want everyone to agree with our point of view. So point of view A, or those who go along with point of view A, are wanting all the people that go along with point of view B to agree with them. Because we've got this idea that we cannot live in harmony if we have different points of view. However, the enlightened point of view, the enlightened person, has realized a reality which is prior to point of view, which I call the sun. The enlightened people, one of the most best known enlightened person is Jesus Christ. Then there's Buddha and Krishna and many others. Many others. Go on the internet and find out people who call themselves enlightened. And these enlightened people, because they have realized something which is beyond, just say, a reality with a capital R, that's beyond the individual reality with a small r. The enlightened people are living without depending on a point of view, without depending on other people agreeing with their point of view or not, as the case may be. They don't care about their points of view. They have a point of view about many things. This is a lovely cake. There's a point of view. This cake hasn't got so much sugar in as that cake, or this isn't as sweet as that. It's a point of view. It's all down to taste buds. There's so many points of view. Everyone has points of view. But the enlightened person, the one who stands free of point of view, the one who is already happy, In other words, they're not dependent on anything to make them happy. They are mature, they stand alone, they don't belong to anyone or anything. They have incarnated as love. They are at one and at peace. There's no conflict in them whatsoever. They don't feel the need to be agreed with. They're simply living, simply, easily, without fear, without anxiety, without concern. They are allowing their body-minds to be lived by a great power, great energy. So the ruination of society, of the world, of communities, of families, is this identification with one's point of view. My mother, when I was a child, hated me having a point of view. I'm your mother, you should listen to me, I know best attitude. I love her dearly, or loved her dearly, but she suppressed. She would not allow me to have a point of view. Anyway, I've realized something greater than point of view. And dear Christian and anyone else, this is what Jesus wants you to realize. He wants you to realize what he realized. And he realized that reality with a capital R that is like the sun prior, before the condition with a capital C, before all other conditions with a small c, before all points of view. And that reality with a capital R is the same for everyone. The truth, which is reality with a capital R, is like the sun, which is stable and constant, which is prior to the clouds, which keep changing. It's like the waves. There's the ocean, and there are waves. But the waves are no different to the ocean. But the waves don't look the same as the ocean. But the waves come and go. The waves are never, ever constant. I can't say to you, oh, look at that wave. I can say to you, oh, look at that wave. Because as soon as, within a millisecond, it's changed. But the wave is an illusion. We see a wave, but it's not, it's water that's been disturbed, if you like. It's been ruffled. We say that, don't we? We've ruffled his feathers. He's got upset. See, that's another thing. We say, you upset me. You annoyed me. You irritated me. But from the enlightened point of view, the enlightened person realizes and understands that there is no one to blame for one's feelings and thoughts other than, if you want to blame, yourself. Because as we know, let's just say there's 50 people in the room and they're all watching something on television, which is quite disturbing, but it's not disturbing for all 50. Some people are not disturbed by what they're watching. but 2 or 3 people are getting disturbed by it. Or I can't watch that, it upsets me. Attitude. But 40 other people say, really? It is not upsetting me. Even if those 40 people say, well, actually, I'm finding it very enjoyable. That is, in a sense, a kind of blame. We're saying that is making them feel better, making them feel good. In fact, until one realizes this, which the enlightened person has realized, all upset and excitement, all conditional happiness and unhappiness, all unnecessary fear and unnecessary anxiety and tension is something that each individual is doing to themselves. That is what needs to be realized and understood. And then we can grow out of many childish and adolescent patternings and tendencies that adults continue to dramatize in their latter years. As a child, it was correct that we depended on our parents and peers for all various necessary requirements. And as an adolescent, as a teenager, we started to grow away from our parents. We wanted to become more independent. So as a child, we're very dependent on our parents. And as a teenager and adolescent, we wanted to become more independent and stand up for ourselves, which is good. But as adults, we keep fluctuating between wanting others to make us happy, and in the next moment, we want to go alone. I can do that on my own. Attitude. We have to grow out of these childish and adolescent ways and live the more enlightened way of finding that stability, that happiness that Jesus talked about and that all the enlightened people talk about, which is realizing that we are already happy, already love. And that's what he meant by being born again. Our first birth stuff is full of conflicts, full of blaming, full of anxieties and fears and concerns. It's only first birth stuff. It doesn't, it's like the waves. It's not necessary. It's like the clouds. It's not necessary. We have to realize something greater. And we have to start living that greatness. The first birth stuff is ourselves with a small s. Our true self with a big S, a capital S, is that stability, that maturity, that which is the sun rather than the clouds. We have to come together and learn that we are all that capital R reality. We are all the sun. We've got to find this out. We've got to realize this to be the truth. And then we can live in harmony with one another. And then we will see that there's no such, there's no need to live the way we do live. I know best attitude in arrogance. That all of that will fall away once you become enlightened. And how do we become enlightened? Well, there's an old Indian saying that you become what you meditate on. So what we've got to do basically is to stop meditating on our clouds, on our problems and concerns, and radically shift our attention to that which is already happy. And Jesus said it in that statement. He said, I am the truth, I am the way. So for the Christian, Jesus should be the focus, the object of meditation. If you agree with this statement, we become what we meditate on, then it's important to meditate on that which is not the usual human nonsense that we keep dramatizing as adults. Adults are forever dramatizing their so-called problems and concerns, desires. I know best, I want this, want. All this greed, all this animosity, all this fear. There's another Indian saying, as long as there is an other, we live in fear. We live in fear of the other. So when 2 or 3 or 4 or more people come together, living, as I call it, the open hand disposition, rather than the clenched fist disposition, then we can sit comfortably with one another and have a cup of tea and just enjoy one another's company. When we all are coming from the same disposition of the open hand, we can wash up together, we can have games together, we can do gardening together, we can go for walks together without any conflict. We all need to stand alone with that which is always already the case, that which is the truth, that which is reality with a capital R. We've all got to find that place. It's not in the head, it's not a belief, it's not a point of view. It is a disposition. It is the disposition of the Spirit, of God, of real happiness, which is already the case, just as the sun is already there. No matter how many clouds we see, the sun is always there. We've got to start turning away from our clouds. Stop meditating on them. Stop regurgitating them. Stop making them. All these wars and conflicts are due to point of view. My point of view is better than yours. See That's what you're doing throughout the day. You have points of view and you think your point of view is better than anyone else's. Why? Because you are not living in this disposition of already happiness. You're not stable. You've got all this scaffolding holding you up. When I was younger, I could see these people having so much, but they weren't happy. Yesterday I went for a walk and I went in an area where there are loads of beautiful houses. You have to be a millionaire to own such houses in an area called Battledown in Cheltenham. But these people aren't happy. They're full of conflicts and anxieties and tensions. Much of their money came from bargaining and warring and look at the thousands and thousands and millions of pounds in accounts. Consider your own bank account. How many thousands have you got in it? What's it doing there? Waiting for a rainy day. Society sees greatness as having. There's another old Indian saying, beware those who own too much and know too much. They're living like clenched fists. Everyone. Millions and millions and millions of unenlightened people are at war with one another. Everyone is at war with their neighbours. There's conflicts, there's greed, there's envy, there's jealousy. There's image. You've got an image you've got to live up to. Everyone has to be set in concrete. Oh, she's like that and he's like that. So we know where we are with each other. I've always been different. I've only ever wanted to live the truth. But you have to understand the truth. And the saying, the truth will set you free, means that it will be setting you free from this stranglehold, this clenched fist nonsense that suffocates God, that suffocates greatness, that suffocates reality with a capital R. Realize the truth while you're living. The truth is not a point of view. That is not the truth. The truth is not a belief in the head. The truth is not a feeling or a thought. The truth has nothing whatsoever to do with the flesh, with the body-mind. The truth is a disposition which is God-made. Only the realizers understand and know this. This knowledge is inherent, it's innate, it's intuitive. You stand alone, you're already happy. You have no need for anyone to agree with you. There's nothing to agree with. The truth is the truth is the truth. You have 100 glasses of water. They may look different. Some of them are fizzy, or some of them have been changed. Their colour, added, or cordials being added, or fruit, something's been added to the glass of water to change its appearance. But water is water is water. H2O is water. You cannot get away from that fact. And we have different waters, don't we? But it's all H2O. You have water from Scotland, water from the Malverns, water from here, water from there. You have clean water, you have dirty water. But all that's been added. Something's been added to the water. Or the water's gone over a particular rock, or it's come out of a particular lake. But water, H2O is H2O is H2O, irrespective of where the water's come from. Rainwater tastes different to the tap water. Why? It's only because of some process or something's been added or what have you. The water remains the same. So when more of us can enter into that divine place of joy and happiness, we have no need for anyone. There's no more blackmailing. There's no more dramatization of emotions. You upset me. I feel rejected by you. So so then I'm at war with you from now on. I've got a grudge to make. I've got an axe to grind. There's none of that nonsense. You have literally grown out of all of that childish and adolescent nonsense. An enlightened person, although he or she stands alone, is not lonely. You know, as a child, I did not want to be a follower of Jesus. I wanted to be more like him. I needed a teacher. We all need teaching. We all need re-educating. And for me, Adidar Samraj is the picture of Adidar Samraj. For me, he has been my greatest teacher. He has made me understood the foolishness of living like a clenched fist. How foolish it is to expect others to make you happy. How foolish it is to think you belong to anyone or anything. And not only how foolish it is, how horrible it is to expect others to make me happy. How selfish it is to expect others to make me happy and things. We are inherently already happy. Living like this is not necessary. It really is not necessary. At the root of all unhappiness, at the root of all the great wars and conflicts and neighbours against neighbours and anxieties and fears and depression and doubt, at the root is this, what I call the self-contraction. It's not necessary. Without the self-contraction, we live happily. There's no addictions. Everyone's addicted to something or other, conditional. And we get upset when that condition's taken away. We base our lives on myths. There's so many myths that we believe in. It's all there to control us, to keep us in place. The enlightened person is free of myths. The enlightened person has no need to believe in anything. Yes, he will continue to believe in things, but his happiness is not dependent on any beliefs whatsoever. Consider how much of your happiness is dependent on what people say to you and how people behave towards you. How much is your happiness dependent on the conditions of your life, on your scaffolding? I remember when I was in my early 20s, I said to God, whatever God was to me at that time, I do not want any scaffolding to hold me up. I only want you to hold me up. To be already happy is what Adidar has taught me. It's, you know, people say, I don't want to be enlightened now I know that. Or maybe they never considered being enlightened. But if only you knew what this disposition is doing to the world and to doing to your relationships, how ugly it is. To live like a clenched fist is horrible, absolutely horrible. To live like an open hand or as an open hand is just wonderful, it's joyous, it's delightful, it's intimate, it's free, it's love, it's a delight, it's a joy, full of energy in life. And you see that you are simply a servant. How many people want to live like a servant? Well, the open hand is a servant. We serve one another. We're generous. At this time of the year, the Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens is often seen on TV. The Christmas Carol is all about changing from this disposition to this disposition. That's Scrooge, that's what we realize Scrooge to be, tight-fisted. Everything's humbug. Unhappy. And suddenly he was converted. It's that conversion. He saw the light, but first of all, he had to see how horrible he was. But this, what I'm talking about, is not about whether you're horrible or not. It's about a change of disposition. He saw the light and he began to live like the light. He saw through his darkness. It was a change of disposition. Until we change, until the disposition is changed from living like a clenched fist to an open hand, we will never, ever be at peace with one another. Never. 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 To be at peace is not suppression. Is not being a goody-goody. To be at peace is not about conforming. It's a different disposition. It's a state of peace, of stillness. Before one acts. Because most people who have heard of Jesus, I use Jesus, I cite Jesus as an example. He was annoyed with the society that he lived in. He was a renegade. He got angry. He associated with many downs and outs, poor people, sick people. Apparently 12 men saw the light. Apparently 12 people recognized him and started to listen to him and started to change their behavior. Apparently. But Jesus was murdered by society. And these 12 people were afraid of society. And they met secretly. The teachings that Jesus taught were both public and secretive. And it's those secretive teachings, the esoteric teachings, that have to be understood and realized. It has nothing to do with belief. We all, as children, had to realize that fire is hot. No matter how many times our mothers said, "Don't touch that, it is hot. It will burn you." But we all had to get burnt. Everyone had to realize. And those babies will have to realize too that fire is hot, that it burns. And water is wet. It's all about realizing these facts by making them personal. We've all got to become like Jesus, enlightened. And if you wish to be re-educated, to understand yourself as a clenched fist, narcissistic, always dwelling on yourself, always pondering, always thinking, think. All that nonsense going on in your head. A change of disposition is a quiet mind. A change of disposition, like the open hand, is allowing God to live you. Ask yourself, what grows your fingernails? What grows your hair? What pumps your heart? It's energy, it's God, it's the God state, it's the God juice, if you like. God is energy. God is a disposition. God is not some person up there waiting to judge you, to say to you, yes, you've been a good boy. You've been a good girl. Yes, you can come into my paradise. No, you've not been good. You go to hell. No, that's all nonsense. That's all myth. That's worse than believing in Santa Claus. At least Santa Claus was a real person, i.e. our fathers and mothers. There's no God up there. We are God. We do the creating and the destroying. You can't create something without destroying something. You can't create something from wood without destroying the tree. They go hand in hand. So what do you want to do for the rest of your lives? Regurgitate the same stuff all day long, every day. Living fear of one another, fear that they're not going to like you, you don't do something correct. Become people of God. Allow God to live you. Realize that God is this great spirit, this great energy. And then you will live as love, and without depending on anyone to love you, you will simply live as love. Instead of wanting to be loved, live as love. Don't live as point of view. Live as that reality with a capital R. And then we will serve one another's happiness, which is always already the case. Thank you for listening.